Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Defiant Podcast. I'm your host, Majid Padellan, aka Brooklyn Dad Defiant, and here is my co-host with the co-most, the incredible Hessenator, Kenny Hesse.
Hello. Welcome everybody to another great show. Pretty quiet week, wasn't it, Majid?
There was really not
going
much
on.
of anything going
Not
on.
much.
Very uneventful.
Yeah, we'll just wrap things up right now, actually.
I was watching paint dry a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, were you now?
Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, that might have been better for my mental health than watching all the events that actually transpired.
It was crazy. Actually, a crazy week.
A crazy week. But we're going to start off on a positive note and then get into, all the negative stuff that happened. Because there were some positives, which, especially for our side, which I'm happy about.
Let's just do a brief summary of what we have in store for today.
I think so.
We have President Biden quieting his critics, stepping up and doing what he believes he needs to do to silence the naysayers who believe it's time for him to step aside.
Mm-hmm. Defiantly so.
Yes. And then we had the tragic events of this past weekend where a would-be assassin took a shot at the former disgraced President Trump, and he missed. Kind of.
Kind of, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then this week, there is a series of speakers in the Republican Party who have gotten together for the Republican National Convention.
Oh, that's what I thought. It was a clown show.
Yeah.
Oh,
yes. In the city that Donald Trump dubbed a horrible place in Milwaukee. How did he even let him in there after calling it a horrible city?
They had no choice. It's just like Republicans at this point. J.D. Vance even had to change his entire tone to be VP.
Horrible city, a horrible VP, a horrible presidential candidate. This is what we're looking forward to discussing. And of course, we have our You Raggedy Bish this week.
You Raggedy Bish.
And that might surprise you a little bit, but actually probably won't. It won't.
Oh.
So let's get started off with talking about President Biden and the strides that he's made thus far to shake off the rust, to shake off the bad mojo from his debate performance. Was that when was that? Earlier this month or late last month?
That was in June, I believe. That was late June. Last month. Yeah.
It feels like forever
it feels
ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Time flies.
But everybody and Biden has admitted that it was an atrocious performance, and that was what set off alarm bells throughout the party, and some very nervous, representatives, members of Congress have either quietly or not so quietly stepped up and said, it's time for President Biden to step aside and let somebody else. This is the part that drives me mad, Kenny. They say somebody else, like, who the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah, it reminds me of like I'm a big like ancient history fan, and one of my favorite time periods listening to or just researching is like ancient Rome. And there were so many times in imperial Rome where people would come in and try to remove someone from power. Not the way that they're doing here. It was much more assassinations and machinations and things, but oftentimes the parts that led to the most chaos was when someone comes in and has no person to replace, no idea of, they just like, oh, Nero is terrible, Caligula is terrible, we have to get rid of this person. Obviously that's not what's happening here, but similarly, like, you come in and you have no idea of who to present, but you're gonna sit there and badmouth the sitting president at the same time. Like,
exactly.
At the very least, if you're gonna do that, provide some sort of option or alternative.
And honestly, the part that pisses me off is that the option should be his vice president.
Yeah, you
That's
would
that's
think.
it. That drives me bananas. Because now, what do you propose to suggest Gavin Newsom or Gretchen Whitmer or Pete Buttigieg, somebody who was not elected by the people?
Yeah.
We voted not only for Joe Biden but also for Kamala Harris.
Yes. And
So,
the DNC unfortunately has a history of kind of doing that, and I think that's why a lot of voters and a lot of people are disheartened with them, especially after what they did with Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders back in the day.
yeah.
And so it just feels sneaky and unwarranted. And I'm glad that Joe Biden was able to come out and actually regain some momentum here and really quiet the naysayers, even though quickly, as we'll see, the narrative shifted. But I think something that's getting lost in all the events that happened is how well Joe Biden actually did and how defiantly he came out and looked when he was at his Detroit rally and in his interview with Lester Holt.
So okay, so let's actually. I don't know if we talk about his. I don't think we had a chance to talk about his NATO
Oh
press
no.
conference. You know why? Because we recorded this the day before that
Right.
press conference, and so okay, admittedly, admittedly, it wasn't smooth. It wasn't all smooth sailing
Of
at
course
that
not.
NATO press conference because right up front, the very beginning, the very beginning, he accidentally called Trump
Zelensky.
Vice President Trump. Oh no, and
Yeah.
then earlier he referred to, but okay, earlier he referred to President Zelensky as Putin, right? But
Right.
then he almost
Quickly.
immediately caught himself, like within 5 seconds. He was like, "Wait, what?" So
100%.
give me a break on that. And what's ironic is that when certain reporters, certain 30 and 40-year-old reporters were
Hmm.
reporting on this, themselves were getting some of the names mixed up,
That's
right?
right. That's
Yeah.
right. I saw that clip. I forget what her name is, but it was so funny because someone did a smash cut of her ripping on Biden for forgetting, and then she misspoke right after that and said
Yeah.
something about like Trump or whatever, and mispronounced something. But it was
Instant karma.
Well, the president was clearly comfortable discussing foreign policy issues from Ukraine to China, but he did mix up Vice President Harris and former President Trump's names mere minutes into the event, just hours after mistakenly calling Ukrainian President Zelensky President Putin. Welcome back. One group that's happy with how President Biden's news conference went last night, Republicans, especially those around former President Trump.
instant karma.
Yeah.
Gotta love
Yeah.
that.
But if you look at the totality of his performance at that NATO press conference, he stood there and answered like serious, textured, layered foreign policy questions
Yeah.
for an hour.
Yeah.
So that's not easy. That's not easy to answer any, stand and answer questions about anything for an hour, let alone like really complex issues regarding foreign policy. I challenged Donald Trump to do that for 10 minutes, let alone a whole hour.
Careful what you wish for. I don't know that you want to see that.
No. No, not at all. So he did very well with that. And then right on the heels of that, the very next day, he had this Detroit rally, which
Right.
I'm gonna be honest, it made me a little verklempt. I got a little verklempt watching it because the crowd was amped up and
Yeah.
they started chanting, "Don't you quit."
Good evening, Detroit. Good evening, Michigan. Good evening, Detroit. And good evening, Michigan. Don't you quit. Don't you quit.
Yeah.
and that got me. That was
Yeah.
that was nice. You know, it
It
was a
seemed to
nice
get
little,
him too. He looked quite sentimental about it. You could see in a lot of the clips he was really like it was sinking in. I think that gave him that kind of personal credo to push on. Not that he ever gave any sign that he was going to back down,
right.
but you could see, and I think that emotion was felt by, like you said yourself, and himself, and anybody who was watching that, because it was very powerful for sure.
Yeah. And then he's been doing this thing recently where if he's speaking and there's people like behind him, he'll
Yeah.
turn around and he'll address the folks and he'll say, you know, my mom or my dad would kill me if I stood here and I didn't say excuse my back. And then the crowd launched into "We got your back," you know, and
Nice.
I thought that was pretty nice too.
Yeah. It's
Um,
almost tearing me up a little bit right here, honestly. I'm not gonna lie. Like, honestly.
yeah, because bottom line is, you have these so-called party insiders. They're and
Hmm.
most of the time, 9 times out of 10, they are unnamed sources, which irritates the crap out of me. Like,
Yeah.
come on. And so this is your game media now. You're going to say unnamed, highly placed Democratic sources, and we're supposed to take that, you know, at face value. I'm not buying it. You know,
Yeah.
what I'm buying is that the people, the very real people that we see chanting and screaming, you know, enthusiastically in support of our president, that I believe. I believe
Yeah.
that.
I think that's a really good point too, because it just kind of shows the distinction that Joe Biden is able to make, and that was exemplified in not only that rally, but in the interviews he's held since, where it seems like he really has his priorities straight in addressing the people in a welcoming and hearty way, very presidentially as well, giving them, you know, that kind of respect that you talk about there, while also at the same time giving the adequate amount of pushback to people like George Stephanopoulos or Lester Holt, when they kind of have been doing a lot of the things that we have been outspoken about here, that kind of has been frustrating not only us but a lot of people with the mainstream media,
Mhm.
where, you know, the focus is on Joe Biden's age or his mental acuity or his gaffes, and not on Donald Trump lying throughout the debate, not on the policies of, or the terrible policies of Project 2025.
Right.
And so we actually got to see some of that defiance, and maybe a little bit of the frustration,
You,
which may not have played, you know.
you said defiant.
I did. Yeah, I did. I think I've said, we got to have a tracker or something, because I think
We
I've
should
said it
have
at
a
least twice or threes.
bell. We should have a
Yeah,
bell every
that's a
time
great
someone of
idea.
us says defiant.
Honestly, maybe one of those like ring bells right before a boxing match kind of thing. That's a good sound. Ding ding.
I have a, believe it or not, I have a cowbell.
Shut up, dude. How are we just finding out about this on episode 6?
It's been on my desk the whole time.
Dude. Yeah, with a pencil. I used to play cowbell in the marching band, actually. I was
We
damn
need
good.
more
More
cowbell.
That was so good. That was a great walk-in.
Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But yeah, so in reference to you were talking about his interviews and specifically with Lester Holt,
Yes.
um, it feels like he is kind of shaking off the rust, maybe,
Mhm.
you know, because the more of these things that he does, the more comfortable he's getting, you know, and you know, I think this is what the party wanted to see. I remember shortly after his disastrous debate performance, the talking heads were all like, "Yeah, he's got to get out there immediately, and he's got to do public rallies. He's got to do these interviews, and with no teleprompter, and he's got to do this and he's got to do that." And this is what he's doing.
Yeah.
He should all these things that he's doing, I believe, is part of his shut the fuck up and get out of the way and support me campaign.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. While doing the duties of the president as well, mind you.
exactly. So I liked a lot. There was a lot that I liked about his interview with Lester Holt. And I used to really respect Lester Holt. I didn't respect the way he conducted that interview. It felt adversarial.
It
You
did.
know, he once again he asked him, have you watched the whole debate video? Why?
His response was great.
What's the point of that? You know,
He's like, I was there. What the fuck do you mean, dude?
Yeah, exactly. And there were several other pushback moments. There was one in particular where Joe leaned forward, and he asked him, when are you going to ask the other guy about the 28 lies that he told?
That you appeared to be confused.
Lester, look, why don't you guys ever talk about the 28 lies he told? Where are you on this? Why didn't the press ever talk about that? 28 times it's confirmed he lied in that debate. I had a bad night. I wasn't feeling well at all. And I had been, without it making I screwed up. But
I just asked the question because the idea that you may or may not have seen what some of these other folks have seen, you're not on the same.
I'd have to see. I was there. I'd have to see it. I was there. And by the way, seriously, you won't answer the question, but why didn't the press talk about all the lies he told?
Well,
I didn't know anything about that.
We have reported many of the issues that came up during that debate.
No, you haven't.
We'll provide you with them.
God love you.
I really like that because I'm sitting here at home watching this shit and saying to myself, when is he going to ask about, the other guy? Nobody's asking the other guy about the outrageous things he's talking about with Hannibal Lecter and the shark and the electrocution and all this other stuff. Nobody's asking him about his crazy stances on a variety of issues.
Yeah. And I mean, look, I've heard some differing opinions about like how adversarial he should be and how much pushback he should give. And like, I kind of can understand some of the critiques of like, okay, well, maybe be a little bit less adversarial. But at the same time, I'm like, look, this guy's been getting hounded for weeks now. And just now the narrative is shifting. But you could tell he was frustrated. Like he is sitting there and he's like, dude, I'm trying to do the damn job of the president.
Yeah.
And y'all are just not even like, and he has every right to be completely upset. How many fucking stories came out in just that like couple weeks alone? The entire media landscape was focused on nothing else other than should Joe Biden resign? Should he step down? And I think the American people, like you said, a lot of people were probably sitting at home and being like, when the fuck are we actually going to hear, what everyone else that's not in the mainstream media has been saying, like push back against Donald Trump? Why are we not covering this? And so I think
or policies.
Yes. Yeah. So I think he got a lot of his frustrations out.
God love you.
Yeah.
that's I guess that's Delaware ease for God bless your heart.
Yeah. Right? In like a condescending way. God love you.
God love you.
God love you. That's probably my favorite quote.
And then he had just the other day, I want to say was it Tuesday? The NAACP
I think it was.
rally. Yeah. That was fantastic.
That was really
and like, again, we're talking about shaking off the rust. He is finding his form with these rallies and they are sharp.
Indeed.
They're very sharp. I don't care if it's teleprompter or not, because, just the fact that somebody is reading from a teleprompter doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to read it all that well. As we've seen time and time again, Donald Trump will have teleprompter and still, shit the bed.
That is no longer admired, respected, or listened to. Will repeat your. Anytime I start talking, they take the red light off. Look, he can't campaign. He can't speak. So we call it migrant crime. I came up with that name because I come up with a lot of good names. You see Maduro, Venezuela, it's unbelievable, is going to the border, doing a show. Sean Hannity, good man, Sean Hannity. We'll demolish the deep state. We will expel the warmongers.
But The standout moment for me was when he did a call out to Donald Trump's thing about black jobs.
Oh yeah.
And he said, "I'll tell you what a black job is. It's the vice president of the United States." And the
Let's
crowd
go.
just went crazy.
No, I'm serious. Go figure. From a guy who spread the birthers and lie against Barack Obama, saying he wasn't born in America and he wasn't a U.S. citizen. Of course, here's what he thinks of black jobs. I love his phrase, black jobs. It tells a lot about the man and about his character. Folks, I know what a black job is. It's the Vice President of the United States. I know what a black job is. The first black president in American history, Barack Obama.
That's a great line.
Yeah.
That's a mic drop moment if I ever heard one.
It was indeed. And, so overall, I think, excuse me, I think he's shown me enough, I was not even questioning whether or not he should remain in the race. I think, he's 81 years old. He knows himself. He loves America, and I don't think he's got an ego with this. I don't. I think he wants to finish the job. I think he honestly believes that he can beat Donald Trump. He keeps going back to, like, show me the poll that says that I absolutely cannot win. It's July.
Yeah.
It's July, for crying
4
out
months
loud.
is an eternity. And I think John Fugelsang last week brought up an incredible point in a hilarious way, but it's something that I've been mulling on more and more, especially with relation to and thinking back on the 2016 election and how wrong the polls were there. But the people who answer polls are people who answer their landlines or accept like spam looking calls. I've never been polled in my life. Willingly, I guess.
Yeah.
you know, how, like, I don't know.
I personally would not mind being polled. I wouldn't be. But 9 times out of 10, when my phone rings and I'm getting spam likely, reading on my phone. So I'm not answering the spam likelies.
No, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't mind being polled, but I feel like it's similar to jury duty. It's like, you're getting people who are answering their landlines, and it's just not a great way to gauge, and the polls will shift. I think, like, back when Trump had back during the debate, I think it was like the polls shifted like a point or so down in Biden's case. The RNC is going to give Trump a boost. These things come cyclically, and there's ebbs and flows. And like we said, 4 months till an election is kind of an eternity in politics, especially considering just 2 weeks ago, we were having the conversation about, not even 2 weeks ago, what am I talking about? Just last week, we were having the conversation about should Joe Biden drop out or not. Right. And now the conversation has completely shifted, and that's within the matter of 4 to 5 days.
And this morning I was listening to Morning Joe, and Joe Scarborough mentioned a poll that was taken just before the debate, and then was taken last week, and it showed that Joe Biden actually gained a point. Oh, no. Excuse me. The poll was taken Monday. Monday. Wow. So this is after the shooting.
Yeah.
Joe has gained a point. He was down by 3 or 2, and now he's down by 2 or 1. It's a virtual tie.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it will remain as such up until basically the ballots are cast at the battle box.
So Joe, going into this weekend, I believe, was already building up some momentum in regaining ground he had lost after the debate. And then Saturday, Donald Trump had a rally in Butler, Pennsylvania.
Yep.
And the unthinkable happened. A 20-year-old registered Republican, and we didn't know this until maybe I think it was a day later we
Right.
found out. But yeah, it was a 20-year-old registered Republican managed to climb to a roof 148 yards away from the stage,
Yeah.
and with an AR-15 and started shooting.
Yep.
And so you know how we talk about where were you in those, like, you know, those moments, those, you know, unforgettable moments in history.
Yep.
Where were you when that happened?
I was at the gym. I I think I was like on the Stairmaster or something. And of course at the gym they have all these TVs lined up. Some were playing, you know, maybe the Copa game or something, and
Mhm.
others are playing CNN. And so I saw it kind of live from CNN's broadcast of
Mhm.
like, you know, it was like Pops heard at rally or Trump injured, and you see the secret. I saw it from the Secret Service, like getting him down. There was no sound that I could hear.
Right.
But I remember I'm like looking down, and this lady in the row of treadmills in front of me just like stops dead in her tracks, gets off the treadmill, and starts looking at the TV, which prompted me to get up and look at the TV, which prompted me to then completely stop everything I was doing and immediately, unfortunately, jump onto social media,
Yeah.
which was a cesspool at the time of just blatant misinformation, and people going off about nonsense. And so I, from there, just basically went home, continually refreshing my feed, looking for more information about what happened.
Yeah.
So that was my experience. But where were you?
I was home. I was on my couch, and it was Saturday. Was it Saturday? It was Saturday. And on the weekends, I like to, like, I still do tweet, you know,
Yeah.
but I'm more like kind of laid back. You know, Saturday is also Catterday, so I'm usually like
Hell yeah.
posting, you know, my little cat videos, and we have a kitten, so
Oh,
I'm
nice.
posting those videos. But at the time, I was watching The Office, and I was clueless, just watching Office reruns, and I was clueless that anything had happened.
Wow.
And then I saw some, I forget what was trending, maybe like shooter or something like that. And then I
Yeah.
started seeing all these pictures. I saw the video of Trump getting up and raising his fist. And then I turned on MSNBC, and they were almost on a loop. They were playing that whole incident, and my first thought was, what the fuck is happening? Right?
Yeah.
Because, you know, as much as I despise Donald Trump,
Mhm.
I don't want to defeat him that way
No,
at
not
all.
at all.
Like, you know, I've said this over and over and over again. Like, first of all, you don't want him martyred, you know, because
No.
that will just make him and make Trumpism even stronger. I think we have to. The only way to defeat him is at the ballot.
Yeah.
By ballots, not bullets.
Yep.
So yeah, that horrified me for a number of reasons, not just that, you know, but also because, you know, that gives me concern for, is there going to be some attempt at retaliation? Even though it was a
Exactly.
Republican, we didn't know that at the time, right?
Yeah.
And these are already, you know, hypercharged times. So I'm watching this, and after I got over the shock of what I was seeing, my next thought was, why are these guys, why are the Secret Service letting him pose
Yeah.
when there could be another shooter there? That was the first thought. You know, again, did not want any harm to befall him. He is, you know, I consider him my political adversary, but I don't want him, you know, shot or assassinated, you know.
No.
So I'm thinking, the Secret Service, what are they doing? They're just
Yeah.
letting him hose? That's insane. And then my second thought was, I'm old enough to remember when, John F. Kennedy was shot at, was killed by an
Yeah.
assassin's bullet, who was in a clock tower. Why wasn't every single rooftop? And it's not like it's not like this area had like 20 different buildings to secure. It was like 3.
And they were all like barn roofs too, like wide open.
Insane that there weren't Secret Service people on the roof where that shooter ended up. And then we found out that there were people at the rally who were shouting to police. There's a guy on the roof. This was like minutes before it actually unfolded.
Yep.
That's insane. So there were so many failures that happened there. But, and then, as you said, the cesspool online,
right.
This is where conspiracy theory central exists, in a dearth of, when there's a lack of information, there's an information, vacuum or whatever.
Yeah.
People are making up their own facts. What were you seeing?
Oh my God. Everything from this was staged one way or another. You saw, a lot of people like immediately posting the picture of the Jersey fist pump, saying like, this is the hardest picture ever kind of thing. But there was so much of like I think Jon Stewart even referenced this last night, of people like saying it was staged one way or another. But then also just this kind of like immediate blame game, which felt so insane. It was like, and it's so disturbing and disgusting and tribal, where it's like, you're almost sitting there praying like, oh, hope this wasn't someone on our side, right? And which is just kind of it's stupid in and of itself, because obviously anyone who commits an act like that is mentally ill, mentally unstable, deranged, violent, nothing good. But we're at this point where everyone's kind of gut reaction is like, whose side was he on? And
we had a bunch of Republican members of Congress who were saying that President Biden, did he say called the shots or he orchestrated or something? I think that was absolutely reprehensible. And
100%. Marjorie Taylor Greene said some of the most atrocious things, even for her. Even for her. Even J.D. Vance, who is now the vice presidential nominee for Donald Trump, without any information, came out and said in a tweet like, this is Joe Biden's fault. This is not an isolated incident. This is because of the rhetoric of the left. And that just rubbed me so the wrong way, because you did not see that type of response from anyone in the Democratic Party, anyone in power, right? Anyone who's an actual leader of the party. They were quick to condemn the violence.
They denounced it. Sure.
They denounced it. Joe Biden called Donald Trump as soon as he could. And then on the right, and I know that hypocrisy on the right, hypocrisy in politics in general, but especially for MAGA, is nothing new. But to see them just without any evidence, not that they need any, because nothing they've ever done requires evidence, but to go out and call Democrats and say this is a direct result of the rhetoric of the left, when you have been the ones for years inciting political violence time and time again, with repercussions like January 6th, and people getting punched, Paul Pelosi joking about things like that. And it just feels like, who the hell believes that?
Yeah. There were a ton of incidents where Donald Trump has used incendiary, violent, straight up violent language on his campaign trail, in his rallies, that people are conveniently forgetting. And I thought it was noteworthy that President Biden immediately came out and denounced acts of violence, not once, not twice, but 3 times directly after the shooting. And he did it from the bully pulpit, from the Oval Office. He also reached out. Apparently, he reached out to the family of one, because there was a person who was killed. I think he was a retired firefighter.
Yeah.
And I want to see, his name was Corey Comparatori, who died shielding his family from, like, he threw his body on top of his family, shielding them from the bullets that rang out. Oh, and speaking of the bullets, that's another part of the conspiracy theory where, well, I don't want to say conspiracy theory, in as much as people are wondering, where did the blood come from? Because there are pictures of Donald Trump's ear bleeding, and there's, kind of blood going across his face. So he did sustain some type of injury that caused him to bleed. Now, some people are saying that it was from a piece of glass from the teleprompter that shattered when the bullet missed.
Right.
Other people are saying that if it was a bullet from an AR-15, and even if it missed, the air displacement from the bullet would have ripped part of the top of his ear off entirely. I don't know. I can't verify that because I don't know about bullets and AR-15s.
Yeah.
All I know is, same as you, the stuff that we're seeing online. This is all we're able to process now. The media, all they were doing was kind of just playing this thing on a loop over and over, and it's almost like it felt like a psyop to me, because all they're showing us, they're kind of brainwashing us with this image of him, defiantly.
Yeah. Ding, ding, ding.
Defiantly holding up that fist. They must have showed that 100 times if they showed it once, but they're not giving any answers as to, well, at first, what kind of gun it was. Where's the medical report? These are questions. These are legitimate questions that should be asked. What happened? Why did the Secret Service allow him to stand up there and pump a fist when, that's...
I have no idea if there's more than one shooter, if there's,
I would think it's Secret Service 101. If someone has shot at your protectee, your job is to keep their head down and out of sight until you can get him safely secured in a car. I'm old enough to remember when Ronald Reagan, there was an assassination attempt. I mean, I was in high school when that happened. There was an assassination attempt on Ronald Reagan, and the shots went off, pop, pop, and dude's head was down. You didn't see him again because he was covered with Secret Service, and they shoved him into that car. It wasn't about him raising a fist in triumph and saying, fight, fight, fight. No, he was, his ass was in that car within seconds.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it like you said, it leaves a lot of questions to be asked. And I know there's an ongoing investigation into the Secret Service response. I know,
there's hearings are going on today in the Senate and in the House.
Oh, wow. Okay, well, good. Yeah, hopefully we'll get some more information from that. But yeah, the internet absolutely abhors a vacuum, and it just kind of allows a lot of that ridiculousness to get flooded in. Thankfully, unlike people on the right, unlike MAGA, you did have people on the left, particularly Joe Biden, responding very strongly to it. Like you said, he immediately pulled all of his political ads, which I thought was very presidential. Made the public remarks, condemned all violence, which just should go without saying that has no place in this country, in our democracy. But unfortunately, there is a trend. There's a very real trend of an uptick in that. And I do think that majority falls on the rhetoric of the right. and saying anything otherwise is at best willfully ignorant, and at worst downright deception.
Exactly. Yeah. And in the aftermath of this, of that shooting, apparently Donald Trump, according to reports or reporters, Donald Trump has had a change of heart where he's saying, he wants to unify America. He's going to, if I had $1 for every time they said, Donald Trump was changing his tone, I'd have a bag full of dollars, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so apparently he's saying that he wants to change the tone now going into this week's RNC.
Right.
And I don't know about the changing of the tone. I guess many members of the Republican Party still haven't gotten that memo, because
or it didn't get loaded into their teleprompter.
Yeah, exactly. There's a whole lot of less than unifying language going on at this week's Republican National Convention.
They promised normalcy and gave us Transgender Visibility Day on Easter Sunday. And let me state this clearly. There are only 2 genders. And we are made in God's image. Amen.
And by the way, it is now time for us to do what we like to call You Raggedy Bish.
You Raggedy Bish.
And this week's You Raggedy Bish is none other than the Republican National Convention.
The whole thing.
The whole kit and caboodle. Why? Why? Because, for starters, the most important point is that for the first time in history, a major political party in the United States has nominated a convicted felon as its standard bearer, as its presidential candidate.
Yep. Out here breaking records.
This is an absolute disgrace.
Yeah.
And then he nominated J.D. Vance, who really was no fan of Donald Trump as recently as just a few years ago. There's things that he has said that you can't unsay about Donald Trump.
Right. He called him Hitler. He said he was a never Trumper. He said he never liked the guy. He said a slew of just really, really nasty things about Donald Trump.
This is an evolution, and I know you've been asked about this before, about past comments that you've made about Donald Trump. You've said, I'm a never Trump guy, never liked him. Terrible candidate, idiot if you voted for him, might be America's Hitler, might be a cynical a-hole, cultural heroine, noxious and reprehensible.
Now kind of fitting in with this change of heart narrative, he has had a change of heart himself. And it was curious to see Trump pick him. Apparently it was a very messy process up till the very end. And people, even Trump himself maybe, was not sure that this was going to be the pick. And I think there were reports of Donald Trump Jr. kind of speaking in his ear, maybe because they both have a beard, and it's like we need a young guy with a beard on the ticket. That they like, and maybe I was reading a New York Times article earlier about a meeting that J.D. Vance had with Donald Trump right after Trump left the presidency. And they were talking about how J.D. Vance did not initially ask for Trump's endorsement when he was running in his Ohio race. And Trump was kind of curious about that. And he was like, okay, we'll see how you do. But JD Vance is not a super popular guy, even among MAGA or Republicans. So it's an interesting choice.
Well, that's interesting because there's people saying that he is even more MAGA than Trump himself.
I don't know that that's the case. I can see where that's coming from, but I feel like he's not MAGA in his core beliefs, but he knows how to message MAGA. And him being an educated, media trained person who wrote a book, the Hillbilly Elegy,
Right.
that was quite successful and stuff. I think where his strength comes is that he can take the MAGA kind of movement and phrases and he can be a mouthpiece to translate it in a more educated and more I don't know, verbally acceptable. I forget the word that I'm looking for here, but a way that maybe translates to more people, specifically to younger working class men, white men specifically, but even like Black and Latino men. And I think he can use that come to Jesus moment. And I guarantee this is what we will see, is him really taking advantage of the fact that he has had a change of heart on Donald Trump and using that to speak to the parts of MAGA that may be off-putting to a lot of people and try to translate them almost like he's got like a stone of translation. He's going to bring that to the light of the people.
I think it's fine for MAGA that they think that this is going to benefit them, but honestly, frankly, it's not going to help expand their base. And
No, it's not.
Even more importantly, for the Democratic Party, it should help galvanize ours, because there's a lot of stances he has, like JD Vance is in favor of a national abortion ban, and he is definitely pro Project 25.
Yes.
Project 2025, excuse me. So yeah, he's if he is the vice president and he's a Big Mac away from assuming the head role, I think this helps us. Actually.
I agree. I think there's also he's just a very troubled person. I like what you said about him not being able to expand the base. I don't think they win anything here. I don't think they gain anything in the party from having him as the VP. Like he's not going to do anything to the ticket. Maybe his youth, maybe, but I highly doubt that. Maybe his blue eyes that Donald Trump loves so much. He said multiple times how pretty his eyes are, how beautiful they are. Yeah, it's ridiculous. But I really do think that this is an opportunity for us, especially considering too that the man has lots of skeletons in his closet. Like you said, proud supporter of Project 2025, dangerous ideas, and being able to speak to them. But also there was that thing he did, the fraud that he committed by setting up that charity. And was it to give money to cancer? I forget exactly what the charity was for, but he then used the money, all the proceeds, to pay political advisors and run campaigns rather than actually donating it to the charity. So
it's very on brand, very on brand for Donald Trump, who also, has had his own foundation shut down for fraud, and has had his university shut down for fraud, and had his organization shut down for fraud. There's a trend here. There's a definite, message. There's a definite brand for fraud. Typically, vice presidential picks don't really necessarily move the needle for a campaign. However, this year I think is a little bit different, because both of the main candidates are up there in the years. So naturally, voters are looking at their number two, the next in line, for the presidency. And I think if you look at JD Vance, he doesn't give you a warm and fuzzy feeling. He gives you the opposite. He gives you chills up your spine, and warning Will Robinson, danger Will Robinson. That guy is a fascist. And then if you look at Kamala Harris, She's well spoken. She's intelligent. She was a former attorney general of the largest state in the nation.
Yep.
And most importantly, she is going to follow President Biden's policies. She's just not going to make some shit up herself and, just go rogue or whatever. She's going to basically follow pretty much the same agenda for progress and for growth here in America. And I think the first 3.5 years of President Biden's presidency has shown that he is on the right track. He does know how to move us forward in a positive direction, and she's going to continue that work. Worst case scenario, should he be unable to complete his second term, which I think he will be, actually.
Yeah, that's a great point too. And honestly, I think that's another asset in our ledger. Will be her debating JD Vance. I think she will absolutely destroy him in those vice presidential debates, which will be nice. I do have some funny moments from the RNC if we want to cap off with those.
Please, we need humor. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I feel like bring some levity to it. And since the Raggedy Bish is the entire RNC, there was a wonderful moment, two wonderful moments that I have for you. The first being, I'm going to save the best for last because it was just too funny.
I know what the best is already.
Okay, I think we all know what the best is.
Yeah.
But the first moment was Matt Gaetz and Kevin McCarthy having their live spat on the floor. They have a history together. Kevin McCarthy, former Speaker of the House, who was ousted. Matt Gaetz was a major part of that. And then after Kevin was ousted, Kevin had an interview where he said the reason he was ousted, he blamed Matt Gaetz directly, though not specifically naming him, but said it was because he was Matt Gaetz was under investigation for having relations with a 17-year-old. And there was an ethics investigation in the House, and Gaetz wanted that shut down, and Kevin McCarthy was not willing to do so. So then that all culminated in this moment that we have where Kevin McCarthy is speaking to CNN, and Matt Gaetz chimes in and comes in and tries to give him a mouthful. Take a listen or a look.
One who's not coming back, and then the other part that you have, and the other part you have is one person who raised the issue. He's got an ethics complaint about sleeping with a 17-year-old. So that's the way they would go. So that's the biggest challenge we have.
Kenny, there were definite choices he could have made differently in that scenario. And I know we're talking about Matt Gaetz, who you don't expect anything from, but come on, man. You're on the national stage and you're coming up small on national TV. Don't think that anybody at home watching this thinks, oh yeah, that Matt Gaetz, he's a stand-up
Matt
guy.
Gaetz really got him.
My wife saw that and she's like, that's like a punk. He's just acting like a punk in middle school. Exact words. Punk in middle school.
It's funny she should say that because apparently that's about the age of the company he keeps, allegedly.
Oh.
I had to get that one in there. But yeah, Matt Gaetz. God, and you're doing that on live TV at the RNC where the message is supposed to be unity. They just can't keep the cattle in the pen.
No, and as far as unity goes, there's so many different examples of non-unity. Mostly, they're taking shots at the most vulnerable people in our society. I'm talking about trans children. There's railing against that. They're railing against the DEI measures, and even Ron Johnson talking about calling Democrats clear and present danger. That's not unifying talk.
Not at all. Was Ron Johnson the one who accidentally loaded the wrong message in the teleprompter? Was that him?
Could have been. Yeah. I think he did blame.
He's like, instead of stopping and saying, "Oh wait, I forgot the message is now unity. This is the wrong speech." He had to just read it verbatim and go into the hate speech.
He should step down.
He should. So should Marjorie Taylor Greene. She's great. But in the vein of keeping with the funny, This is by far the best moment we've seen at the RNC, and that is, and apparently, and I heard this, I didn't know if it was true or not, so I didn't say it when I made a video about it. But apparently, Rudy was sipping on the sauce. Rudy Giuliani, he was a little sauced up, and he had an unfortunate run-in with some folding chairs.
Mm. God damn. You couldn't possibly script a worse fall from grace than we watched in real time with Rudy Giuliani, who was at one point, he was America's mayor. I don't know if people really realize that at one point everybody in the United States was like, bravo, Mayor Giuliani.
Yep.
And then from that to shit streaming down his face to COVID farting on Jenna Ellis to having a thing at the Four Seasons Total Landscaping. Oh my God. To shaving in the airport to wow, just the tuck. What was it? The Borat bedroom tuck. Much. So much.
Yeah. God, that guy, man. I think I now realizing I love that clip so much because it truly is a literal embodiment of all of those falls from grace.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just been having to get lifted back up like this, like a rag doll. Terrible. It's great. It's great. But yeah, that's the RNC in a nutshell right there, that clip.
Yeah. And then I guess I do want to say something about Nikki Haley, because she had an opportunity to make a stand against Donald Trump, and she chose not to, and that was cowardly. That was very cowardly. She said some real things about Donald Trump that you can't just forget. She said he was unhinged. She said he was more unhinged. Excuse me, not just unhinged, but more unhinged now than he was before. That he was unfit to serve as president. And this was just a few months ago. It's not like she said this in 2016. She just said it in like February.
Yeah.
So how do you go from that to strongly advocating for him to be president of the United States? Give me a break.
Yeah.
He has no credibility.
Must have had spinal removal surgery or something in the months in between.
Oh, and also, you remember Peter Navarro?
Oh yeah, of course, the guy who was in jail.
Former Trump advisor Peter Navarro just came out of jail. Will be speaking at the RNC tonight, I believe.
Criminal clown show. More criminals, the more criminal. It's like Six Flags. The more criminals, the better.
Check your character and self-respect at the door.
Well said.
Yeah.
Well said.
Kenny, that's it's been a hell of a week. I think President Biden has made some progress, at least in my eyes, and I think in the eyes of many people in the base. And it remains to be seen whether or not his detractors in the Democratic Party have gotten the message yet that, look, you know what? We don't need you to attack our nominee. Leave that to the Republicans.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think we will see those detractors start to fall even more into the background, if not be completely silent from here on out. And I do think that come August, we'll see what an actual message of unity looks like at the DNC.
Yes, it's time for us to be in array, as opposed to disarray.
Indeed. Indeed.
So, ladies and gentlemen, that's been another episode in the books of the Defiant Podcast. I'm Majid Padellan, a.k.a. Brooklyn Dad Defiant.
And I'm Kenny Hesse, aka the Hessenator.
Stay defiant.